Everyone. Welcome to FTB Fridays for the 28th of May, 2021. I'm your host, Jason C. McLean, and I'm joined once again by Samantha Gold. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi. We're going to do something a bit different. We're going to do a news roundup. We're going to go through a few key stories, and let's get started right away with the big news locally. Tonight, there's no more curfew.
Yeah, hooray!
Hooray! So go out after 9:30. I was even half tempted to just test the waters and go out last night at midnight when it was technically the 28th. But no,
I think that's pushing it.
and I was also asleep too. But yeah, but those so things are loosening up. Where restaurant terraces are going to be open.
Mhm.
Bar terrace is not open. That's the next step in the deconfinement.
They're also talking about reopening gyms and sort of outdoor sporting events, which is certainly going to help, I think, morale in this city a great deal. I know that there has been criticism from sort of gift shop owners and other sort of smaller businesses in especially Old Montreal and the Old Port area who feel like the reopening is only really favoring restaurants when so much of their income relies on tourism.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's obviously, I imagine bars are upset that they're not being able to open up right away as well too. There's always certain businesses. I mean, they're trying to slow it down for a reason. I get it.
Absolutely.
They don't want to open up everything, but then again, there's always people left in the lurch. And like, for example, like resto bars can open, but not bars. It's like I'm a bar. I imagine there's some bar owners thinking, hey, why don't we just sell some food? We could open like.
Yeah, but the question is, I think I'm not sure, but there must be some particular rules with regards to selling food. Like if you're selling drinks, you're selling drinks.
Yeah,
But if you're selling food, there's probably additional protocols to follow.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly. One thing is,
but I know that, some people are looking forward to the reopening, not just from sort of the fact that curfews never really worked to
yeah,
curb the pandemic and has been criticized even by pro-mask, pro-science people who are saying that this was more a social control thing and not a pandemic control thing. But, many of my friends have pointed out that all the curfew really did was force people to spend the night at other people's homes when they were just there to hang out for a few hours with a friend who lived alone.
yeah,
The other thing
exactly.
they pointed out is that with the curfew being lifted and more people going to the terraces, there will be fewer people crowding the parks.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. I mean, I've been to I went to a park a few weeks ago. It was quite crowded. I'm going to be in the park tonight, by the way. I'm going to be by the canal. It's
Well,
celebrating my brother's
it's
birthday.
great for me
Yeah,
personally
yeah,
because I'm going to a clothing swap on Saturday, and I've been avoiding the parks because I'm partially vaccinated, but I'm also high risk and not an idiot.
yeah.
So every time I'm tempted to go to a park, I see a whole bunch of people who are not really socially distancing and or wearing their masks incorrectly, and I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'll just go to my parents' backyard.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. That's one thing too. Is I mean, people are also going to be allowed in backyards as
Yeah.
of tonight. I think up to 8 people from 2 households. The thing is, there's also there's two of us. There's the general sort of deconfinement, but there's also the thing based on zone.
Mhm.
Most of Quebec is now flipping to on Monday is flipping to an orange zone.
But I think
Montreal a
Montreal
week
and Quebec
later.
City and I think Laval are going to remain red zones. I know that the situation in Quebec City, because I have connections there, I used to live there for a few years when I was doing my law degree. The situation's really bad over there. Like
But
I
they're
don't even
actually they're
know.
actually switching to orange. It's
Really?
it's
Oh, okay.
Montreal, Laval, and and a few select little pockets in other regions, like one
Mm.
in like I think Rimouski is, but another city in the area is, and Rimouski isn't, or something like that. But yeah, that's going to be rolling out over the next few months. So at least good times are almost here again.
Mhm.
Sorry.
But yeah, the reopening is never going to please anybody, but it's certainly an improvement. I'm more concerned about, the anti-vaxxers and the anti-maskers spoiling the party for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing is there were anti-curfew protests, and some of them were very good, but then some of them got mixed in with the mask crew and were taken over by right-wing politicians, and that was horrible. But one thing
My
is,
big problem with the anti-maskers and the anti-vaxxers is that they're co-opting the language used by persecuted minorities to push their point of view. And as a Jew and an Asian Canadian, this is a slap in the face, because most of these people are in positions of privilege. Most of them are white, and most of them are, say, middle income people. So it's kind of insulting to see them. I've seen, these anti-maskers, anti-vaxxers, for example, co-opting words like Holocaust and
Well,
genocide.
Marjorie Taylor Greene in particular, I believe,
Oh,
made a
God.
specific reference. We're actually, it's an interesting segue to our next topic. She's been in the news in the States a lot lately, for not good reasons, for fighting, well, intimidating, it's almost stalking Alexandria
Well, she
Ocasio-Cortez.
apparently hounded Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is an immensely popular politician from New York, an immensely popular congresswoman from New York. She's literally been chasing her out of the congressional chambers, and and then saying, "Oh, she won't debate me. She won't debate me." Well, if you're actively hounding and harassing somebody, it ceases to be a debate. And in fact, when AOC was asked about this, she I'd say she very wisely said, "This is the kind of person I used to throw out of bars all the
Yeah.
time." And full disclosure, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a politician, is a congresswoman from Georgia, but she's also a QAnon follower. And for those of you who don't know, and unfortunately, it has kind of caught on in Canada too, you see a lot of QAnoners in the anti-mask camp. And these are people who believe that the government is run by Satan worshiping pedophiles. And ironically, Donald Trump is their savior.
Yes, that's very, very scary, considering he's obviously the least I mean,
He has known connections to Jeffrey
yeah,
Epstein.
exactly. It's
Like, that's all you need to know.
yeah, you don't have to imagine like Hillary Clinton and her pizza place or something when you got
You
Trump.
mean
Yeah,
Pizzagate?
Pizzagate. Yeah, that was the thing that Hillary Clinton was running a pedophile ring out of a pizza place in Washington. Somebody actually went to the pizza place. There was no basement where the ring was supposedly was, but still, I think shot one of the employees or something. Like,
What I find particularly sort of sad about the whole Marjorie Taylor Greene situation is that Republicans have kind of sort of taken a stand against her, in the sense that they have, even though she is a Republican, they've stripped her of all her committee assignments. But as you were pointing out in our discussion before the show, you can't unvote somebody.
yeah,
And Georgia is a point of contention because it went blue this past election.
yeah,
But the other thing that I think needs to be said is that if somebody were acting in the way that Marjorie Taylor Greene was acting, someone would have surely had her committed by now. Under each province sort of has its own set of rules that if you feel that somebody is a danger to themselves and to others, you can have them committed for at least 72 hours pending assessment by a team of psychiatric and medical doctors. And I say this because it's not just that she's actively hounding people, but she's been known to bring in sort of right-wing thugs with her to hound politicians, so much so that a pro-transgender politician put out a flag in front of her office, and another politician actually asked that her office be moved away from Marjorie Taylor Greene's because of the real threat of sort of
yeah.
violence and harassment.
At least in Canada, are like, I mean, stuff like that probably wouldn't be tolerated in our
No.
parliament, but there is a lot of stuff that goes on even within our
Oh, yeah.
government. There's this story now that there's there's a woman who revealed, a black woman revealed that she was given a large sum of money to basically drop a racial discrimination suit against
Yeah.
the government, and now there's a class action suit by a bunch of
Yeah.
former government employees.
She was basically saying that, I mean, she went on, sorry, she spoke to CBC, but on the condition of anonymity, because she was afraid of losing her job. And frankly, I don't blame her. Government jobs tend to, have fantastic benefits and all this sort of thing. But she basically said that she noticed that her white colleagues were getting privileges that she wasn't. And she filed a complaint. And part of the sort of condition, one of the things they wanted her to sign as part of the conditions for getting this sum was a non-disclosure agreement that she wouldn't speak to the press. And she refused to sign it because she was deeply concerned that this was really just putting a band-aid on a gushing wound of a problem. And it's interesting because our government, and I would say especially the Trudeau government, likes to tout itself as sort of taking the moral high ground on racial inequality issues. So much so that just the other day they were apologizing to the internment of Italian Canadians during, I think it was World War I or World War II. And because at the time Italians were considered a separate race, but now because they are white or white passing, they have largely been sort of assimilated into the general
Well,
population.
yeah,
White
it's
passing.
interesting though, because I mean that we talk about the internment of Italians, that was a government decision that
Oh
they're
yeah.
apologizing for. The thing is, I guess the bureaucracy is, I mean, it's supposed to be independent from the government. So I mean, you're right. I'm the first to say that Justin Trudeau, it's all talk and very little action, especially on some issues like fighting racism. But
You
at the
need
same
look no
time,
further than how they've
yeah.
treated Indigenous people.
Yeah. At the same time, though, how much of the current government has control? How much do they actually have control over the bureaucracy in
Mm.
situations like this? So that's what I don't want to
Well,
give
there is a
Justin Trudeau
certain
a pass,
degree
but
of top-downness, but this is not to say that there are sort of lifelong bureaucrats working in the system who may or may not be told to implement this or that change and said, no thanks,
yeah,
and gotten
exactly.
away with it.
Yeah. What's systemic racism? That's literally the
Mm.
definition, right? It's within the system. And I mean, I guess you have to have people willing to fight it who are elected, but also you need to, I guess, appoint people within the bureaucracy who are against it too. Maybe more people of color in the bureaucracy itself. That's, I guess,
Absolutely.
maybe a way around it. But at least, I mean, the federal government, for example, some of the things they've been doing well. For example, I've been liking their COVID support, and even though
Mm-hmm.
nationally some places aren't doing that well, even though people are getting vaccinated. One
Yeah.
place that did particularly well for Quebec, especially, is Montreal. People
Yeah.
said that we were we avoided this the second wave, and a lot of that has to do with Montreal public
I would
health.
say we avoided a fourth
The
wave, but
fourth wave,
that's
well,
just me.
we avoided
Because the
one of the.
second wave was when the schools reopened, and the
You're
third
right.
wave came after the holidays and so on.
I think we're setting our waves by the American standard, which is really weird
Right.
considering we're not even there. But sorry, the thing is we apparently Montreal Public Health was shutting down specific businesses and schools, and they were doing a lot of contact tracing. And one of the reasons we're not going to full orange zone at the same time as everybody else is because of Montreal Public Health. So people have credited them a lot with stopping that wave. And I guess, I mean, it's obviously Drouin, the Montreal Public Health Minister, but I think Valerie Plante might get some credit for that as well too.
Well, it's interesting because I think it was yesterday or the day before, the education minister Robert for Quebec came under heavy criticism because he basically put words in the mouths of public health officials saying that the ventilation problem in the schools was nowhere near as bad. So if you want to, can I segue into local issues for you?
Yeah, that was kind of the segue,
Okay.
but
Okay. So you're seeing this manifesting itself in the ongoing teachers strike.
yeah,
Because one of the things that the teachers are striking over is the lack of safety and the fact that sort of reopening plans when it came to the schools were implemented without consulting experts in education, without consulting the teachers on the ground. So it's like not only are they offering them kind of an insulting increase in pay through negotiations with the union? And Legault, despite his multi-million-dollar home in Outremont and stuff, is saying there's no money left to offer them something better. But they're also being told you have to reopen regardless. And we're basically going to say that everything's fine. When even public health officials have called out Robert and said, this is not what we said at all. You're not telling the truth when it comes to the ventilation problems in the schools that are exacerbating the spread of COVID.
yeah, that's true. I mean, but again, yeah, at the same time he's getting criticized, but Montreal Public Health is being praised,
Yes,
and I wonder if
and they
that.
deserve it.
Yeah, and I think some of that praise might go on to Valerie Plante. I also think in the next election, Valerie Plante's the biggest gift she could have had was the fact that Denis Coderre is running against her.
Oh yeah, because a lot of people still hate Coderre.
Yeah, exactly. Like the way I see it is, if, for example, there's three groups, right? There's the people who are the Projet Montréal diehards, people who will vote for Plante, voted for Plante last time, will vote for Plante next time. There's the people who hate Plante. They don't necessarily like Coderre, but they'll vote for anyone but Plante. They voted for Coderre last time, will vote for him again this time. And then it's the third group, the people who were dissatisfied with Coderre, and therefore elected Plante, and might now be dissatisfied with Plante. And if it was a different candidate, a new name, they might vote for that person, but they're not going to go back one step to the one they hated enough to vote Plante in the first place.
It's interesting because I'm in a particular position because I live in NDG Côte-de-Neige. And
That's a whole
what
other
makes
story.
this interesting is because of the whole dispute between Valerie Plante and Sue Montgomery, who is the current mayor of the NDG Côte-des-Neiges borough. She created her own party, and she is running against Plante. And you have a few people who split from sort of Projet Montréal and Valerie Plante for different reasons. At least in NDG, there's certainly talk of the fact that in the municipal budget, even though we're the biggest borough, we were offered sort of an insulting amount with regards to the municipal budget. But I voted for Plante because I felt like, I was dissatisfied with Coderre. And as somebody who's only been disabled for about 5 years, I feel like disability access in the city has actually gotten worse under Plante, because these bike paths have created real barriers for people with mobility issues, for example, to get access to their homes.
I mean, there's a lot. There's stuff
I'm not a fan.
You're not a fan, but I mean, the thing is, like, Denis Coderre, what I dislike about Denis Coderre is, for example, he hasn't learned from his mistakes.
No.
He admits that Formula E was a huge fiasco, but gee, I could have told you that day one. You're putting a rate. You want to talk about access to anything? You're blocking off entire sections of city streets to run a race when we have a racetrack on Ile Notre Dame where you could put the race there. But no, the promoters want to do it in the city, so he'll just bow down to it, lose a bunch of money. And also, with his new plan is he wants to put skyscrapers that are taller than the mountain.
What for?
For, I guess, to revitalize downtown. I live downtown. I think it needs to be revitalized, but you know what? People are working from home now. You don't need giant office towers going up.
No, and frankly, the notion that you have to be on site in order to confirm that you're actually working, it's a dated concept. We have the technology. At the end of the day, the only thing that should matter is the work done? Is it done well? And is it on time? And, we have beautiful skyscrapers and we have a beautiful mountain. Why do they need to be in competition?
Yeah.
I think the big issue that people have with Coderre, it's not just that he hasn't learned from his mistakes, but he's seen as doing a lot of frivolous things because of potential corruption. He's not seen as, quote, the honest candidate.
Yeah, at least Plante, I mean, like there's a lot of stuff she's done that I don't like, but I mean, like, there is some stuff she's done that I do like. And I think, for example, she is at least aware there's a housing crisis and is trying to fight it. Like, they're not doing as well.
Yeah, but at the same time, she's taken the typical wealthy person's attitude towards sort of the housing crisis, and one of the most obvious manifestations of it, which is the homeless encampments, people who are willing to live in the rough because it gives them the independence and autonomy of that they would never get at a homeless shelter that has all sorts of ludicrous requirements and doesn't allow them to, for example, come and go as they please and leave their stuff. What did Valerie Plante do? She said, get out of here. And the reason, I mean, I'm not saying Coderre would have acted any differently.
He would have been worse.
I'm sure he would have.
He would have done it
the
sooner.
First one to send in the cops. But it's clear that this wasn't out of consideration for the people who live there. It was more because it was an eyesore and an embarrassment to the city, because it's an example of how the city has failed to take care of its most vulnerable.
I do see that as a failing, but I think Coderre would have been worse. And I think on some files,
I agree.
On some files, she actually has been doing a lot better. And but one thing is, your borough in particular, NDG Côte-des-Neiges, that's a bit of a mess. Because the thing is, Montgomery and Plante might be on different ends of the spectrum, but they have a lot of similar policies. So I can see the people who like those policies splitting their vote, and a third party and the Coderre candidate, be it Russell Copeman running again, or maybe Lionel Perez coming in and winning based on that.
Well, I don't necessarily see Lionel Perez or what have you winning, and it's not because I don't think that they're competent. I think that from a representative standpoint, and especially given the mixed feelings about the whole secularism thing in NDG Côte-des-Neiges, Lionel Perez is a practicing Jew, and visibly so. He wears a kippah and everything. But it's also that I think people are aware that the whole dispute between Montgomery and Plante was more of a personal nature and not of a political one, because it all revolved around, disputes between Montgomery's bureaucrats in NDG and Montgomery's chief of staff. It's clearly more of a personal dispute and didn't have all that much to do with policy.
Exactly. That's why the policy is the same.
And I think that there is an overall awareness of that.
Yeah. But
So it will all come down to, which candidate do you like better?
so you don't think of Russell Copeman or someone, say maybe not Perez. Copeman has been borough mayor before. Say he gets the Coder nod. Would you think someone like that would come
I
up the
think
middle?
that if Copeman wins, it will be because people are disappointed in Plante and who think that the whole mess with Montgomery was a sort of frivolous thing that was an added expense to the city that was kind of unnecessary.
Yeah. Well, I guess one thing that was becoming proved to be more and more necessary is just for things to do, and
Oh yeah,
arts. Festivals are kind of coming back this year. I mean, it was okay.
sort of.
Oshiag is not coming back because you can't. I think it's being had that's to do with the U.S. border. You can't until you know when that's going to be open. You can't plan a festival like that in a month.
It's
Uh,
not just that. Let's be honest here. They're going to make some exceptions for celebrities when it comes to sort of the borders being closed because they always do.
yeah, but you still can't plan Oshiag because half your audience comes from out of town too.
Yeah, that's true.
But then we have something like Just for Laughs, which is doing hybrid festival. But their definition of hybrid is there's going to be some in-person shows in Montreal and also in-person shows in New York and Los Angeles that we're going to be able to see on the web here. It's, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
because of travel. So it's kind of, and Fringe is
You're
also doing a hybrid festival.
Yeah, they're doing a hybrid festival, so there's going to be shows that are available for streaming, sort of from the start of the Fringe Festival. I think around June 1st,
Yeah.
I think to June 20th, and they're going to have a few in-person shows. One show that immediately comes to mind that's going to be available online is the Malicious Basements Wretch, which I provided a review of.
You did a review. You can read that on the site, by the way.
Yeah, you totally can.
You can also read the review or your review and your interview about the Comedy Works,
Yeah, that's
the
true because
Unknown Comedy Club.
yeah, because local comedian Rodney Ramsey, who I had the privilege of speaking with last week, he launched the Unknown Comedy Club, which is a virtual comedy club that he said would never have happened if it weren't for COVID. Necessity is the mother of all invention.
Yeah.
And I attended one such show on Saturday night virtually. I mean, I was on my couch in my pajamas, but I found that in some ways it was a more intimate experience just because it was done as a giant Zoom call and you had the opportunity to chat directly with the performers, which I thought was really awesome. Like Deanne Smith gave Forget the Box a shout out, and I'm like,
Nice.
But yeah, exactly. So in some ways it was more intimate. In some ways it was not quite the same, but it's sort of the best that we can offer for people who, like myself, are being extra careful because of COVID, because we're not completely out of the woods. And I think that's something that we need to constantly be reminded of. It's, the reason why I will continue to wear a mask in public. It's not necessarily that I don't trust you, for example, it's that I don't trust anybody
Yeah.
when it comes to public safety.
Yeah. Well, so there's a little something for everybody. Hopefully by next year, though. Hopefully we'll have a little bit more. The next summer we can have all our regular festivals back. Hopefully.
I'm just happy that
Yeah.
the public sporting events are reopening because I've noticed that there is an uptick in power tool noises since the start of the pandemic, and I think it's because men are bored. And unfortunately, aside from video games, indoor hobbies are largely seen as female pursuits. And so every other day I hear some jerk with a leaf blower, lawnmower, power tool, power saw, whatever, doing frivolous repairs on for those of them who are lucky enough to own a home, are doing what amounts to frivolous repairs. And I think it's because they're bored.
Yeah. Well, at least this weekend, people don't have as much excuse for boredom. And I know for a fact that even if like everyone leaves and it's cold and stuff, and I don't want it, I'm going to stay on the canal. I'm going to be there till at least 10
Bundle
o'clock.
up, geez, we're
Yeah,
Canadian.
no, I know, but
even
if all my friends leave, I'm staying there at 10 o'clock because at 10:01, I want to be on the canal. I don't want to be heading home just because I can. So with that, thank you very
bring
much.
Bring a hat and scarf.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, even if I don't want to be there, I'm going to be there just because it's after curfew.
I know.
All right. So thanks, Samantha. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a great weekend. Everyone have a great weekend. People can follow you on your artist page on Facebook.
Yeah. You can follow me on Facebook at www.facebook.com/samiamart. I'm a makeup artist. I also, if anybody wants a makeup consult to sort of break up the monotony, and I'm also offering free coloring pages for kids on my professional page. You can also check me out, to help parents with the stress. I am also you can also check out my work on Instagram at samiamartistmtl.
Cool. And you can follow me on Twitter at Jason C. McLean. And you can read, you can give us a like and share and subscribe on YouTube. Hit that smash that like button. Like and share on Facebook. You get follow us on Twitter at Forget the Box. There's an app, an Android app, and you can for you could read Samantha's reviews and interviews, and also other daily. You can also get our weekly Montreal Arts and Music this week column. And for daily content, check out forgetthebox.net. We'll catch you next week for another FTB Friday.